Hello and welcome to Mark Codex. My name is Mark and today we will talk about Inquirer.js. Now, Inquirer is an interactive command line user interface for NodeJS. Whew, that was a mouthful. You might have seen this package in action if you ever installed a React app using command line, or similarly for Vue and many other applications that require an interactive CLI prompt. In this video, I will cover how to install, how to use the Inquirer package, and after that, we will code together and build a simple BMI calculator. If you want to skip any part of this video, I have the timestamps in the description box below, so you can easily jump to any section. And now, let's get into it. So first of all, we need to grab our command line and initialize a node application. For this test, I am already in a folder called code, and I'll just create another folder and I'll call that test inquirer, and I'll cd into that. And then inside of here, in order to create a Node.js, you need to do a Node.js application, you need to do NPM init. You might use npm init-y, and -y is a flag where you could answer all the questions by the default answer, but I'm gonna skip that for now, and I will just go ahead and do npm init and hit enter so I can see those prompts. And what do you know, we have package name and it asks us what is the package name, so I'll just go ahead and say hit enter. Test Inquirer is fine for me, version 1.0. Are we okay with that? Of course. Description, testing Inquirer npm package. Hit enter. Entry point index.js. Why not? Test command, I don't have any. Get repository, I don't have any. Keywords, I don't have any. Author is Mark. License ISC, that's fine. And it will show us the object that we just created and the JSON that we just created. And is this okay? I'll hit enter to confirm. And now I'll bring the folder in the code editor to see what we have just created. All these questions or these prompts that we just answered is similarly to Inquirer. So that's why I'm going through over Inquirer. This is what it is. It's basically asking the user a questions, and the user will interact with those prompts, answering it, and then decide what is the outcome will be. For now, for this example, we just created the package.json. All I need is to add, just need to add a start script. I'll do that right here, which is going to be node, and I'll say index.js. Great. So we just created our start command. And after that, we need to now install Inquirer. And honestly, all you need to install Inquirer is just to either copy this or just type it. So it's just only npm inquirer, assuming, of course, you have Node installed. There we go. So while is this gonna get installed? Well, we need to go into the documentation and just grab the code that the developers at Inquirer just provide for us, which basically all we need. And in here, we need to go ahead and create index.js. And I'll just paste whatever we just copied. For now, I don't think we need a catch. Well, let me go ahead and explain what are these sections of code. So the first section is going to be where you're going to put your questions, or where you're going to create your questions for the user. And the answers will be in this promise section right here of the code. So once the user finishes every single or answers every single question, we will get a promise with the answers. So for now, I'm just gonna print out or console log the answers So we could see what the user answers. The catch error, well, just in case there's an error is going to happen, basically it's asking if the error is TTY error, which is basically like a flag that the NPM developers created. And it shows you here, it says prompt couldn't be rendered in the current environment. And if there's any other errors, you could basically catch it here. I'm not going to use this for now. So just gonna get rid of it. I don't have to have a semicolon. And inside the prompt, as you can see, we have an array. So we pass an array of objects inside the prompt function. This is how the developers have set it up, but basically the object will be containing all the arguments that needed for a question. So if I go back to the documentation and I go down a little bit, I could see the questions and I could see what arguments I could pass in. I'm gonna go over just those just to explain it, but what I'm gonna usually use are these 5. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to use those 5. Feel free to go and venture and learn by yourself and see how to use a filter, transform, when, and page size. They are all useful, but for this video, it will be long for me to go ahead and explain all those. So I'm just going to go ahead and explain the first 5 because we're going to use it in this video. So all these arguments that we're going to pass is basically gonna determine what the question type is, name, message, and all that. So what type is? Type is basically you gonna let Inquirer understood what is the type of the question. Is it just an input from the user? Is it gonna be like a number from the user? Is it a confirmation message? Is it a list? The name is to use when we are storing the answers. So basically this is going to be the identification or the key in the object in the answers from the user. And we get to see that in a second. The message is basically the question itself. If you don't provide this flag or argument, the name will be the question itself. And I can show you that in the code. The default is going to be your default answer if in case your question could be answered with a default, like for example when we saw in creating the NPM, the Node application, we had to actually, like for the version we just gave 1.0, you could just give it a head in the default. For choices is an array or a function returning a choice array, which means that usually choices go with the answer. You basically give the user a couple of choices to give the answer for. Usually it goes with the list, the raw list, the expand, the checkbox. I've honestly never tried it with input. You could go ahead and try to do that and see what's going to happen and learn from that, obviously. And validate is basically just to validate the answer. It will give you a Boolean response, either a true or a false. So I'm not going to go over these, as I said, because it's going to be a long and boring video. I'm just going to go ahead and create a couple of questions using these types. So let's go to the code. All right, so let's go ahead and start creating a couple of questions to see all these types. So I'm going to go ahead and create all these questions and the types of the questions at least, and see what the answer will be. So let's create a simple question type, which is going to be an input. And we're going to say the name will be input type. Now, if we missed, again, as I mentioned before, if we missed the message, if I didn't write the message, the name will be the question. So pay attention to that. You got to add the message. And then the message will say, yeah, what is your name? Let's ask, what is your name? And question mark. And then we will give a default value so we could see what is a default is. And in default, oh man, Great. The second question, let's do this time a list type of a question. So let's do type, and then let's do list. And in the list as well, we're going to do a name, and then this question. The message will be, what programming language do you like? Now, obviously for a list, we're going to have a couple of choices. And if we go back to the questions arguments, we'll see that we need those choices. So let's use that. And let's go back to bring those back and do choices. And choices is going to be an array of answers. So let's do one for JavaScript, comma, one for C++, comma, let's do Java, and then Python. So those are my choices, and the default will be gonna piss a lot of people off, but let's do JavaScript. Awesome. So this is the default answer. And what other types we have? Let me go back and check. Yeah, let's do checkbox. Let's do checkbox. So I'm just gonna copy this, and let's do checkbox. And type of question, I'm gonna say checkbox. And in the checkbox, let's do how many programming language do you speak? And again, I'll use the same answers, and of course I'll do the default as that. I think for now this like kind of cover most of the importance. We could go ahead and go. You could go ahead and check the rest of these questions, but they're gonna be similarly the same. They're not gonna be like a lot different. So I'm gonna go ahead and run our application. Make sure I saved my file, and let's do NPM start, and let's see what's gonna happen. What is your name? Iron Man. So I could hit enter, and the answer for the output will be Iron Man. But for this time, I'm just going to do a mark, hit enter. And now you could see I could, with the arrow keys, I could use an answer. And now these choices are basically, if I hit enter on a choice, it will be selected. But think about this. For this one, for the list, the option is only you have to answer one question. So I'm going to go ahead with the JavaScript and hit enter. However, for the checkbox question, it's going to be a multiple answer. So that's why like I use the list and the checkbox question. So I'm going to go ahead with the space, pick which answer I want. So I'm just going to go ahead, C++, Java, and Python. And there we go. I have all my answers right here. And this is a challenge for you. Figure out why input type went ahead and show like this without a quote, while I did put it in a quote, wrapped it in a quote, but these was wrapped in a single quote. That's a challenge for you. And comment down below, let me know what is the answer is. So that's basically cover it. This actually was the console log. So once the user finished with all the answers, the console log here showed the answers. All right, let's get into building our BMI calculator. Now, the BMI calculator formula is simply BMI equals to the weight divided by the height squared. And all that is multiplied by 703 because I'm going to be using the US standards. if you live in another country, the formula is simply just by removing the 703. I guess living in the US has its perks. You multiply things with 703. But yeah, you can simply try. There's like you could do like some other enhancement to this application. You might have a confirmation question to basically to ask your users if they want to live, or if they live in another country other than the US. So you could ask them about like the metric or US standard. So for this tutorial, I'm just going to be using this formula. So when I get my answers, I'm expecting to get the height and weight from the user. So let's get into getting this question. In here, I'm going to also show you the usage of the validate. So it's going to be pretty exciting. So for the first one, I'm just going to go do type of an input. I'm just going to keep those questions and just manipulate them. And the name of this one is going to be name, and I will ask the user what is their name. I'm not going to have a default value, but I'm just going to do a validate. Now in the validate, what I can do when the validate passes a function, and in that function you can check whether the input of the user immediately. You could check if the input of the user or the answer is what is expected. If it's not expected, you could repeat the same question again, or just prompt another, simply just another question, or just like just to let the user that, hey, your input is wrong or false. So let's do this. So we got the input, we pass in the input in that function, or let's actually make it like as an answer just to make it more clear. And we're gonna validate if the answer is actually empty. So if the user didn't give us anything, then we will basically, what we will do, we'll break this and we will return a string. And the string will say, for example, please enter a valid name. So and if the answer does not equal to an empty string, we could just return true. And this is how validate works. It passes a function, and this function passes the answer, and then inside you will validate to whatever your validation is going to be. You could basically like check if this is a number or if this is not a number, if it's this a boolean or not a boolean, if it's true, if it's false. But in order to go on and move on to the next question, you gotta pass in or return true for this validate. If it returns false, which is basically in this case, it will just return the string itself. And we will see that in a second, because I will test it out for you. So that's the first question. It will ask them for a name. Actually, let's pretty this out a little bit. Let's do like a console.log with a string that has like a couple of these, and we could say like BMI calculator, and we'll have, actually let's be symmetric, I guess, and let's have BMI calculator as of like just like as a breaker. And we're gonna use the inquirer, and then like in here, this is our first question. Let's get the second question. Typically what I actually love to do is grab this array and just create an array called question, like this, just to separate it from the function, and then pass in questions, like this. This is what I like to do. I like to separate them. Obviously you could do it either or. I just prefer kind of like this way. It's way cleaner. So yeah, so in our second question, we're basically going to have also another input. and this input will be our height. And we're gonna ask the user, what is your height? And I'll indicate to the user that this is gonna be in inches. So like the user gotta calculate, or whoever is gonna use this program gotta calculate their height in inches. And I'm not gonna use choices, so I just need to grab, just gonna get like a validation. I don't need choices for that one. And also I don't need a default, because I honestly just wanted them to give me like a number. And if they didn't provide me with a number, basically I'll say like, hey, please enter a valid number. So let's see. So what I'm expecting is to get a number from the user. So what I can do is that there's like a function in JavaScript called is not a number, and this one will actually validate for me if the answer is not a number. So what I mean by that is, if it's a string, if it's a boolean, if it's anything but a number, it will just immediately will give me a true value, or it will return true. So this is basically my validation. And I will say in here, I will return, please enter a valid number. Let's say number. And again, the same thing will return true. The weight, the question for the weight is going to be similar to the height. So I'll say, I'll name this as weight. And what is your current weight? And the weight will be in pounds. And I think that's it for the questions. Yeah. I mean, all I need is just like the height and the weight, honestly. We don't want to make it like a 2-hour tutorial. So for now, we prompt the questions. I'll keep this formula in here. And so what I need to do first is to initiate a variable and create the height. And the height will be answers.height. And then I'll say the weight will be answers.weight. And what else? Oh, I grabbed the name as well. Well, I mean, I could definitely have it in a console log. Yeah, what I need, I think now, like what I need is like just to create the BMI variable, and I just want to create the formula now. So I'll multiply it by 703 and then just repeat whatever in here. And maybe we'll do multiplied by height just to get the square answer. So let's see. So weight, height, and I guess that's it. So now, in the BMI table, basically like the index, the body mass index is if it's lower than 16. So if this BMI comes to a number lower than 16, that means you're really underweight. If it's between 16 and 18, it's underweight, and so on and so forth. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna do like an if statement just to validate, or just to kind of like see which condition it applies. So if BMI is less than 16, then I'll just simply console log, and I'll do the backtick in here because I'm going to use a lot of variables. So I will just use the name first, and I'll do answers. Oops, I'm yelling at it. Answers.name. And then we need, what do we need? We need just basically, we're just gonna say like your BMI is just straight ahead. I'm not trying to make it fancy. If you want to do that, please do. And I'll say your BMI is, and I'll say BMI, the variable, and then in there, and it is considered to be severely underweight. Maybe we could say, actually, yeah, let's do this. It's to be severely underweight. So now, sorry about that. Let's do this way so you can all see what I'm typing. And now, like, I'm just gonna do like else if for each single situation. So we have, we basically have like this, the under 16 and the 18, 25. So I'm gonna speed this up to write the whole thing. So bear with me until I finish all that. So let me write that. Okay, that took a while. So I think now we are ready to test our application. Just let me make sure everything is written correctly. Let's do, am I in there? Yes, I am. And let's do NPM start. And let's see what's gonna happen. So first of all, we have like the BMI calculator, that console log just like makes it a little bit prettier. And then like it's asking me, what is your name? So I'm going to test the validation for you guys to see like what's going to happen. So I'm just going to pass, I'm going to hit enter, which basically it should give me an error and ask me like to enter a valid name. So I'm going to hit enter and there we go. We just got, it's just asking me to enter a valid name. So I'm just going to write Mark, and what do you know? It just passes. What is your height? Well, I'm 6 foot, so 6 foot multiplied by like 12, it's 72 inches. So I'm going to hit that, 72 inches. And my weight is 175. So let's do that. And let's see. Mark, your BMI is 23.73, and that's considered to be normal. This is like, it did what I need, but there is something that I didn't like. This number right here, the float, is actually like has a lot of decimals. So let's fix that. Let's fix that pretty quick. So what I need to do after I get my BMI, I need to actually check if it's if the BMI is a float, just round it, and if it is not, just return as is. So I'm just going to create a function, and I will call it isFloat, and this function will pass in a number, and that number will do a validation for. So I'll check basically any integer. If you modulate with 1, it should give you 0. Okay, but in this case, I want to make sure it is a float number. So what I will say, it does not equal to 0. And in that case, now this number is actually a float. So what I will do, I'll just return num.toFixed. And toFixed is just a function in JavaScript. Basically, it will round it to the decimals to two places. I mean, you could definitely have like to 4 and whatnot, and you could just change that number in there. And otherwise, it's actually it's going to be an integer. And if it is an integer, which kind of like it's really an edge case to get an integer from that formula, we're just going to return the number. So that's I guess that's it. So what I need to do is to just only change this BMI. And so I'm just going to select that, and I'll just delete this BMI, and I'll just say isFloat. and I will pass in there BMI, and that should fix it. Let's try that again. NPM start. What is your name? Is Mark. Oh, I didn't test if I pass the string in here, what is the answer will be. So let's test that out. So I'm just gonna put some junk in there, and there you go. Please enter a valid number. Let's put a junk again, and please enter a valid number. Another junk. Unfortunately, Inquirer doesn't clear your answer, just like overwrite it or just like append whatever you're gonna write again. So you have to delete all the thing in order just to submit a new answer. So I'm just gonna put like 72, and I'll test out like another case. I'll put like 245. I want the other option. So let's see, and now boom, we got like Mark, your BMI is 33.22, and it is considered to be moderately obese. And that's it. We now finished this application, and we have our small BMI calculator that actually calculates and gives you the result of your BMI using Inquirer package. Challenge yourself in making a couple of things. You can basically ask the user if they want to use the metric system or the US standards. You could also, maybe at the end, you could validate with the user and ask them, do you want it to input like a new input, or create a new input for that. Thank you so much, friends, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful, and I hope to see you again in the next video.